I want to give you a little overview of what we're going to be going through today in the earthquakes lab. This lab is about earthquakes, seismic waves, and the location of an epicenter. In other words, how epicenters are determined. Part of the focus, maybe a lot of it actually, is on the 1964 Alaska earthquake. There's really a couple of reasons for this. One is that I happen to have a lot of information on it. Two, this is an earthquake that was heavily studied. And because of that, we just generally have a lot of information about the 1964 Alaska earthquake. And I'm also going to talk about the San Andreas Fault. Of course, being in California, this is the most studied fault line on Earth. And in particular, as it goes through Point Reyes, California, which is just a little bit north of San Francisco. Earthquakes are the result of the movement along a fault line or as a result of volcanic activity. My focus in this lab is on movement along a fault line. A fault or a fault line, both of these words are equally good to describe this. A fault or a fault line is this. This is a crack, fracture, or breakage zone in the Earth's crust where slippage occurs. When slippage occurs along a fault line, the result is an earthquake. Okay. When you have an earthquake, the term that does not pop up right away is the term focus. The term that does pop up is epicenter. Let's go through what these two things are. The focus is this. This is the place within the Earth, along the fault line, where the earthquake originates. In other words, this is the place along the fault line where the initial, immediate slippage occurs. That doesn't mean that there's not going to be other slippage, other movement along the fault line, but what it does mean is that this is the place where it originated. And the focus is inside the Earth. The reason for this is actually remarkably simple. There's an almost unlimited amount of space inside the planet, whereas the surface of the planet is limited in space. And as a result of that, how much overall aerial space of a fault line can actually be intersecting the surface of the planet? And remember, many fault lines don't even intersect the surface of the planet. So there's very little area that the fault line actually intersects the surface in comparison to how much aerial space there is inside the planet where the fault plane is able to move. So the focus is this place inside the planet where the earthquake originates. If you look at this diagram, you can see right here that red kind of explosion thing. That's the focus. And then notice that you can see all of these orange waves going out in all directions, because when an earthquake occurs, earthquake waves then are sent out in all directions through the Earth and along the Earth's surface away from the focus and ultimately the epicenter as well. The epicenter is this. This is the place on the surface that's directly above the focus. Why do we even have an epicenter? It's because as human beings, we live on the surface of the planet. We don't live 10 miles down below the surface, right? So it wouldn't make any sense to give us the location of the focus, whereas it does make sense to say, for example, the epicenter of the earthquake was in Northridge, California, or the epicenter of the earthquake was in Landers, California, or the epicenter of the earthquake was in Point Reyes, California. Those are places you can look at a map and find. The way we detect earthquake activity is by using what's known as a seismogram. A seismogram detects seismic activity. So now we have to take a little turn in the terminology. You can say earthquake waves, but that is not the technical scientific name for these things. The technical scientific name is seismic waves. And seismic waves are shock waves that are transmitted through the Earth and along the Earth's surface because of either slippage along a fault line or because of volcanic activity. The seismogram is the machine that records seismic activity. You can see a picture of one on the right-hand side on the top. It's kind of this drum. There's paper that's attached to it, and then there's a needle with ink on it, and slowly the drum goes around. If an earthquake happens, the arm with the needle on it moves back and forth, which then indicates that there was an earthquake. When the earthquake happens, the seismogram then records the earthquake activity, the seismic waves, on what's known as a seismograph. The seismic graph is the paper. It's the record of the seismic activity.